When did you last sit down and write something, like really write it from the first word to the last, without AI finishing your sentences, restructuring your paragraphs, or suggesting a better way to put it? If you had to think about that for more than 3 seconds, this video is particularly for you. I'm talking to the student who typed 2 sentences and opens ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude. The professional who simply pastes their rough notes and gives it to ChatGPT or Claude to tidy it up. I'm also referring to the PhD researcher, and yes, I include myself in this, who starts using AI, for example, for small things, just little things like paragraph restructuring, but gently and quietly, you allow AI to take over the big tasks. You know what I'm talking about. I am not here to tell you that AI is evil. I use ChatGPT, I use Copilot, I use Claude as well. I research these tools. My entire PhD is about the ethical use of AI in academic writing. But I must admit, something is happening to us as writers, and most of us haven't noticed it yet. I have a prediction of what the current path looks like 6 months from now. If nothing changes, you will have written less and felt less in every piece of work you produce. You would open a blank page and feel more anxious than you do today, not less. Because the more you outsource your work to ChatGPT or Copilot, the more unfamiliar your own voice becomes. You will hand in work or send emails or simply write reports that technically says the right things. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you will wonder, is this my work? Do I actually know how to do this without ChatGPT, without Copilot? I mean, this is a question that lurks in the back of our minds. And the honest answer, if you keep going the way you are, if we keep using ChatGPT and Copilot for most of the things we do, is that we would not get better. I mean, writing isn't just a skill you use, it is how we think, it's how we process, it is how we find out what we actually believe about something. When we stop writing, we stop developing the thinking underneath it. And there is research that backs this up, and I'll get into that in a moment. But I already feel you know that already. You felt it if you've been using ChatGPT and Copilot. That slight flatness when you read something back to yourself and it doesn't quite sound like you. That's not a glitch. That is a warning for every one of us who uses this tool. I need to tell you something I have not shared publicly before. You see, I was a high school teacher. It basically means by now I have reviewed thousands of student essays. I mean, thousands, probably tens of thousands of words every year. I knew good writing when I saw it. I knew weak writing when I saw it too. I knew the difference between a student who was thinking through the page and one who was just feeling it. Then I became an editor. I reviewed academic articles before they went to publication. My standard was usually high, and my eyes are really sharp to identify errors, and I was proud of what I could do on the page. But then, very gradually, very quietly, to be honest, I started using AI. At the beginning, not for the important stuff at first, just the normal mundane bits like formatting, restructuring a clunky paragraph perhaps, or even drafting a quick email. Small things, or what you'd call the little sensible things, if I could excuse myself. But then the tags that I delegated to AI tools got heavier. I started using it to summarize articles. I started using it to write an introduction. And one day I sat down to write something important, something I should have been able to do in my sleep. But guess what? I struggled. I literally struggled. I had to reach for words that would normally come easily to me. In fact, I second guessed sentences I would have written without hesitation about 2 years back. I didn't lose my writing overnight. What happened is I delegated it away, one small task at a time, until I looked up and didn't fully recognize myself on the page anymore. And that's why I'm here. Not because I have figured it out, but because I have lived this and I'm in the middle of researching this at the moment. My name is Brendo. I am a doctoral researcher at the University of Strathclyde, midway through my PhD studies. My PhD looks at the use of generative AI in academic writing in higher education and what it actually means to write in the age of intelligent machines. And this channel is where the research meets the practice. I think I know what you're thinking at the moment. I know all the things you might have tried. So let me walk through it because you deserve to know why it isn't working. For example, you might have tried using AI less, and maybe that lasted about a week, maybe two, but then you find yourself pulling back to AI. Why? Because it is strong, and maybe perhaps your deadlines are too real. So it basically means that willpower alone does not fix that structural problem. Perhaps you've also told yourself that you would write the draft first and then use AI to polish it. I try that too. It sounds like a healthy boundary, but you would notice too that sometimes polishing becomes rewriting, and then rewriting becomes replacing, and then you're back to where you started, using AI for the entire piece again. Perhaps you've also tried writing prompts, journaling, or free writing. And to be honest, those things help. But then when your next assignment or your next meeting with your supervisor comes, the AI is right there, 3 clicks away, and the deadline is tomorrow. Come on, you know it becomes easy to give into the temptation of these tools. Another objection you might raise is this. Brendo, I understand what AI is producing. I am supervising it. I am still the author. If you say that, well, there's some truth in that, and I buy into that. But the research on human AI co-writing shows something different. You see, the more fluent the AI output feels, the less critically we engage with it. We stop pushing back, we stop rewriting, and we simply accept. There are studies to back this up. Now, here is the thing that none of the approaches I've seen touch. They all treat AI as the problem. But you and I know AI is not the problem. The problem is that we've stopped doing things because AI is here. There is a Roman history lesson that relates closely to this, a good analogy. For centuries, the Roman army was the most formidable military force the world had ever seen. And that was not necessarily because of their weapons, although that contributed, but because of their discipline, their identity, and their capability that they had built through rigorous repeated practice. Then, gradually, the Roman Empire began outsourcing its military labor to mercenaries. It made sense at the time, it was efficient, and it freed up resources. But then, over generations, something eroded. The Romans lost their muscle memory, they lost the culture and the internal standard that made them world aware. And by the time they desperately needed those capabilities, they were gone. Not taken, just delegated away. And you know what? I think we are doing this now with writing, not just academic writing, but almost all type of writing. There is even a more contemporary version of this Roman analogy. For example, let's talk about GPS studies. If you look at some research on GPS, and it shows that people who rely heavily on navigation apps like your Google Maps, these people experience measurable decline in their spatial memory and wayfinding ability. It is not because GPS itself is bad, but because the brain stops practicing the thing it no longer needs to do. Normally, you would have navigated every place yourself, but now you have to rely on GPS. If you've gone there once, can you still go there again? And here's the shift I want to offer you. Stop thinking about AI as a tool to manage. Start thinking about writing as a practice you need to protect for yourself. So the question shouldn't be how much AI is too much. I think the better question should be what is my writing giving me that I cannot afford to lose? Because when you write, when you really write, you are developing your thinking. We are building our voice when we write. We are creating something that is incredibly ours. AI can help you do many things, but it cannot do that for us. And if we let it try, we won't just lose good writing, we'll lose the thinking that writing was always training for us all. Now, here is one thing that I would suggest. And this is not a list, it is not a framework, it is just one thing. In the next 24 hours, today, tomorrow, anytime, write 200 words about anything by hand or on a blank document with no AI tab open, not even Grammarly, no tabs, no suggestion, just you and the page, 200 words. It doesn't need to be good, it doesn't need to be finished, it doesn't even need to make sense. The point is this: we need to remind our brain that we can do this. The page isn't the threat. that our voice still exists and it doesn't need assistance to show up, that is what we really want. Remember, 200 words, 24 hours, that's it. Let's paint an honest picture, not an exaggerated one. You see, 6 months from now, if we start protecting our writing practice, not necessarily replacing AI, but rebuilding our own first, something shifts. Do you know what shifts? We stop second guessing every sentence we write without assistance. We stop feeling like fraud when someone compliments our work, when, of course, you used AI to draft most of it. And if we continue to do what is good, like putting ourselves first before AI, we start trusting our voice again. We start trusting our essays, our emails. Even in the important conversations, we trust ourselves. And in that case, writing stops being something we do to produce an output. It becomes something we do to think clearly, to figure things out, to be the most articulate version of ourselves in every room we walk into. That is not a fantasy. That's just what happens when people write regularly and deliberately. I've seen it in students and I've experienced it myself. The cost of starting this revolution is 200 words. 200 words. The cost of not starting is your voice, our voice, the one that took years to develop, slowly going quietly, while something smoother and more generic that comes with AI fills the space that our original voice left. I'm not sure that's a trade we want to make. I don't think we actually want to make such a trade. AI didn't take our writing from us. We didn't lose it in a single moment. It happened the way Rome lost its army, one reasonable delegation at a time, until the thing we were protecting was already gone. The good news is that writing, unlike the Roman Empire, comes back, but only if we go back to it. So, what we really want to do again is 200 words today. We could do it after the video. You could even pause this video now to do it. If you want to be here for the research, the honest conversation, and the tools that actually help, please consider subscribing to this new channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.